Right, so we are now live, and we will wait for the audience to grow and join us. So thanks very much. There you go. That's our first one. Hi, Mark Mayer. I always knew you were going to be the first person today. Troy smiling because obviously he has got fond memories of you going over. Morning, Sam Hunter. So fellow Aussie there who's doing great stuff here with the home search. So thanks for joining us as well.
Oh,
Morning,
we're all
Paul.
there.
Morning, Paul from Scotland. So thanks very much for joining us. Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Ben from Kent. Morning, Laura from the Lake District. Anton, I was clearly first. See,
Yes.
they're fighting over you already. Morning, Jim. Morning, Jimmy from Scotland as well. Donald from Ealing. Chris from Brighton. David Smackman, thanks for joining us from Grantham. Owen from East London. Grateful. Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you from Centric. Thank you for sharing it. Chris, Kevin, Peter. Oh, I've never known people so popular at 7:30 in the morning before they all go to work. So just before we start, can you hear us and can you see us, please? If you could just put a comment in, that'd be fantastic. Morning, MK. Morning, Michael. Morning, Ashley. Morning, Andrew from Belfast. Thanks for joining us. So you've literally got everybody from nationwide.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any Welsh agents yet, so hopefully they'll be here. So John and Troy, I'm so grateful. I can't tell you, as I said before we started, it's like Christmas Eve for me today. I couldn't sleep last night. I was so excited. This is my opening my Christmas present in the morning. So thank you. On my timeline, I think it was a couple of days ago, it came up that I was in your offices in Sydney with Luke and Sean and Alex. And I have the pleasure of meeting Troy, who I have to say, John, is an absolute credit to you. Absolutely fantastic. He's come over to the UK twice. He's put on 2 or 3 or 4 unbelievable masterclasses where the feedback has just been out of this world. Absolutely incredible. So he's an absolute credit to you. So thank you. And John, you are the best agent I've ever come across in my 30 odd years of speaking to people going around the country. And when I put this on here, the amount of incredible comments addressed about you was incredible. So
thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. We thank you for your support. You've been great with Eric and some of the stuff we've done, and it's great to share some ideas with your guys, because I think we're constantly surprised, Steve, Troy and I are constantly surprised at how similar in many ways it is. We're a long way apart geographically, but the way we do business, there's a few structural changes, but it's very similar. So I'm sure some of our experiences of the current COVID environment and just the real estate market in general will be, well, hopefully they'll be relevant to your guys. So it'll be a pleasure to share some ideas.
Brilliant. So you founded the company in 1988. One goal: to achieve the best results for each and every client. And one of the things I loved when I came a couple of years ago was your training room. And on your wall, and I know you've moved recently, and on your wall you had you talk about silence, listening, memory, practice, and teaching others. Can I start with, what is that all about? And Troy, let me introduce you. How can I forget you? Troy has been there 21 years now, 22 years now.
20 years working side by side with John. So
I know.
I was having more fun, Stephen. Trying to think, 4 masterclasses, 2 years coming over to see everyone in January. Time does really fly when you're having fun. And I'm so lucky I get to work with some of the best minds in real estate, and we get to do so much together now. And I started as John's assistant. A lot of your listeners will know that, and a lot of people that I've met in the UK, they will know that. And it's almost gone full circle, because during this period, John and I, we've always been working closely together, but almost now, John, it's back to the original days where it was you and I, 15, 20 calls a day, Zoom sessions, meetings, webinars, all those types of things. So it's a little bit nostalgic for me getting to work so closely with John again, even though we were working closely for so long anyway.
Steve, it's interesting. Yeah, thanks, Troy. It's interesting that we were talking on a different webinar our time this morning, so middle of the night your time, and we were talking about some of the changes that we think are going to happen post-COVID, or happening as we speak post-COVID. They're things that were there before COVID, but COVID's actually sped them up. And for example, what we're doing here and now, use day to day, not just sort of long distance webinars, but use day to day of things like Zoom and StreamYard. I think this one's StreamYard. Is really, and it's changing the way. I mean, some of our agents, I think your guys, most of them would probably do open homes, if not regularly from time to time. Certainly would know what they are. Our guys in one of our regional areas are spending all day Friday doing 15-minute virtual open homes, which they're going live to Facebook, very similar to how we're doing here, Steve. And they're getting hundreds and hundreds of views from buyers. And they're literally taking their phone and they're going through the home and they're saying, so Steve, this is the home office and here's the view that we get, and let's walk out to the garden. So they might get 300 to 500 real buyer views. And then of course the buyers can ask, the buyer can then ask questions in real time, and then they can call them afterwards to arrange a real inspection, a physical inspection. But they're so well qualified, by the time they've seen it, they've said their success ratio, or the hit rate, if you like, of closed appointments when someone has seen that virtual, and they send it out to Facebook, and I think they might do Zoom as well, Troy, and Facebook Live, but it certainly goes out. And then when the people come to actually see it, their hit rate is like 2 to 3 times what it used to be, because they've already seen pretty much everything. They're really just now confirming the sale. Things like this, we did during COVID, our company, Troy and I and our head of franchise did a daily webinar. So every morning at 9 a.m, we did a webinar for about 45 minutes. And we were able to talk to, hundreds and in some cases thousands of people up and down the coast of Australia, virtually from our home offices, or literally from our home offices. Virtual agents were doing virtual appraisals. There's been so many things that have happened, and we think a lot of them are very healthy for the business going forward. So it's good. You mentioned before about the training, Steve. We've, as you know, and we're similar to yourself, we love training. We think you almost can't get enough of it. And I remember watching a video of Kobe Bryant. It was after his passing, a video that he'd been recorded about a year before. And he said, you have to fall in love with training. You don't just train, you have to fall in love with training. And he said that was his most sort of important 2 to 3 hours every single day, was getting to training, having mindful practice. Because of course, a lot of people turn up to training because it's in their diary and they're ticking the box, and they kind of do it and they do the scripts and dialogues. But the question is, how deliberate is your training, and how connected are you to the outcome? So I think if you're anyone in real estate, and Troy and I have the pleasure of working with the best agents in the country within our brand. They're doing sensational work, and they all started where every one of your listeners. I know you've got some incredibly successful listeners, and you've probably got some just starting. We've got agents now who are writing, in terms of commission income or gross commission fees, $3, $4, $5 million, who 7 years ago were writing $200,000 or $300,000. So there's been literally a 10x impact, and it's come through training. It's come through masterclasses. It's come through conversation. It comes through practice, scripts and dialogues, just the nuances that we try and train with them. So it's exciting. That's why we love. We were very delighted to accept your kind invitation, because it's an important part of our world is training, and training room is where it used to happen, but I suspect going forward, a lot of it's going to happen just as we are today in a virtual environment.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So, Troy, I know you're head of learning and development there, and you're out training over 2,500 agents. Over 100 offices now.
Yeah,
about 100.
Eastern Seaboard, 100 offices, and I think we learned a lot during this period as well, John. You just mentioned we brought a lot of technology forward that we had started to experiment with and start to feel comfortable with, but the lessons and the learnings that we've been able to condense that or compress it to a point that we're a lot more proactive online now. A lot of our systems have been translated into those digital processes, and even the way we interact with our clients, while it's digital first in many instances now, it's still human being contact first. I think that's one of the main lessons, John, that I think that I've noticed, is that this business is so much about people. And I know that I said that in January this year with the entire team that was at the masterclasses is that the transactions of real estate, that's great, but the relationships you develop, they can create clients for life. And John and I, we talk about raving fans, and I know that a lot of you signed up to the process of 100 raving fans and creating those. I think that's become more and more important during this time than ever before, because that word of mouth referral and the trusted advisor that everyone provides, their local communities and their local villages, that's going to set you up for success. And I think the message is that, you know, you've got to get closer to your people, be that on the phone, be that giving them information, being that really caring about them first, as opposed to just doing deals in real estate.
Yeah, definitely. All about being human.
Yeah, it's kind of about property, but it's really about the people behind the property. And as Troy just mentioned there, you can spend hundreds of thousands of pounds in marketing, but there's nothing like having 100 raving fans in your precinct or your community. That trumps any form of marketing. Well, it is a form of marketing, if you will, but any form of other traditional marketing. So, yeah, no, we're delighted, and it's an industry, Steve, as you know, that it's limitless income. If you want to get good at it, and there's no one on this call now that can't be best on planet, the question is, are you going to do the work? Are you going to do the deliberate practice? Are you going to fall in love with training? From listing, and I know you have a slightly different structure, and I know there are offices where perhaps the principal or the manager does the listing. In our environment, every agent does listings and every agent does sales, so it's kind of slightly different to probably most of your offices. But, you know, if you want to become a 10 out of 10 lister, there's no one other than yourself that's stepping in the way. And we often, one of our favoured quotes is, in the age of information in which we are, ignorance is a choice. And, you know, whether you're zooming into your work, Steve, the work that you're doing and the sort of things that Troy did with you, going to YouTube, listening to podcasts, there is now zero excuse for not being, having mastery, achieve mastery level in every, because when I started, and Steve, probably when you started, if you wanted to learn, you had to go out and find someone who could provide you cassette tapes, and you had to go and find books in libraries and those sort of things. Now it's all on YouTube, it's all on webinar, it's all podcast. So there is literally no excuse to not be at your very best. If you've been in the industry longer than 12 months and you're not at your very best, there's only one person to blame, and there's only one person that can fix that, which is yourself.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I've been running daily on my Facebook page, putting daily posts. So I put you on from the podcast that we had and asking people one thing that they learned from it, and they get a free 30-minute Zoom call with me. They go into a draw. And it's interesting to, you know, the comments that you get. You were definitely the most popular with Troy again. So no, so it's great. So some comments coming in here. Sam Hunter, purposeful practice, 100%. Sean, who's got a different model in the UK, Newman, that I know that you know. All agents should list and sell. David Thomas says they will soon. So thank you everybody for joining us. Please like it, share it, tag your colleagues in. You know, it's a privilege and an honour to get John McGrath and Troy on Zoom together, on StreamYard together. So please, it'd be fantastic if we can get those get the message out there to as many people as we possibly can. So Jim Parker says, I remember those days, books, tapes and upline support with seminars, or online support with, or upline support with seminars. Morning, James. So I'm sure you've got the press in Australia are having a field day with the property market, as they are here. Our national press are saying prices are going to drop between 10 to 30%. How are you countering that over there, please? And how would you counter that over here, please?
Yeah, so Steve, you know, we're getting the same. One of our big banks, the Commonwealth Bank, the biggest bank we have, came out with a research piece. Interestingly, it said that the market could drop 32%. So there's a couple of things. It was about the same time that the Australian media also put out an article that said we could have between 50 and 150,000 deaths off the back of COVID. Well, one death is tragic. We've had 103, which is tragic, but it's a long way short of 50,000 to 150,000. So I guess I only raised that, and I would discuss that with the buyer as well, that there's a lot of opinions. Everyone has one, but looking statistically over the years, right now, just putting COVID aside for a minute, I know it's a big thing to put aside, but there are a lot of other good quality. Interest rates globally are down to almost zero. You've never been able to buy money for less than this. There are a lot of good underpinning strengths in various economies, including yours and ours and the US, to say that had COVID not come along, that things would continue to roll very, very nicely. So what is COVID going to do now? Well, none of us really know. We don't have a crystal ball. We've found, as you found, Steve, over there, that surprisingly, we've had very little impact to prices. We think there's been about 3 to 5% adjustment to prices here, which is minimal considering what we've just been through. We think at the moment, as people come back out of COVID and they start getting back to open for inspections and auctions, which is another slight difference the way we do business here, there could be, quite a strong bounce in prices. The question is what happens in 3 to 6 months, as you said before, Steve, because right now the government and the big banks are providing some very meaningful and good quality support for businesses and just everyday people. We call it job starter and keep people employed and keep people moving. So, at some point that will finish, and there may well be a little bit of an air pocket at that point. But every time a market goes up or down in Australia, we hear people come out of the woodwork and say, there's 30%, 40%, 50% drops. The worst we really see is usually in GFC, we saw a 12% drop, and 18 months later it actually come back to where it was. So that was the GFC. Is COVID going to be worse economically than the GFC? I guess time will tell, but that just gives you a sense. So what I try and do there, Steve, is I try and look at the articles and make sure, because the 32%, by the way, was worst case Armageddon scenario. It wasn't their prediction. Their prediction, a bit like yours, was prices could change from 10 to 32%. But of course, the media grabs the 32% because that's the one that'll get the headlines and the clickbait. So we look at it. We educate ourselves to make sure that where did the research come from? What were the facts versus what's the headline? What has happened in the past at times when markets have corrected? And then we try and make our own assessment, not that we're economists, but what do we think is going to happen? We know there's been a shortage of stock. Listings in Australia have been short compared to historical terms. So we think that's, in a funny way, that's a very positive thing at the moment because it made sure that prices have been solid. We know that there's actually good buyer demand out there and money's very cheap. So we think at the moment, if I'm talking to a seller, I was speaking to one yesterday, Steve, and he said, what do you think? Should I sell now or later? And I said, well, we know the market's good now. I can't tell you what it's going to be like later, but we know it's good now. What do we think it's going to be like later? Well, there might be a little bit of an air pocket or some turbulence sort of toward the tail end of this year for a little while. And if I were you, I'd probably rather be a buyer at that time than a seller. But right now, that's my honest opinion, because Steve, as you know, and you've been, to our events and you've heard Troy and I speak a number of times, we don't use smoke and mirrors and we don't use fancy tricks and we don't have a script and a dialogue to turn around every situation. We tell the truth, and the truth is I think the market's good now. I think it might be a little bit turbulent towards the tail end of the year. I think if I'm a buyer, I wouldn't wait necessarily, because if you find a home you love, it's hard to find a home you love. And if you're going to hold it for 10 years, I don't see why you wouldn't just buy it, take advantage of the cheap interest. You can lock in now 2% or thereabouts interest rates for a few years in Australia. I'm sure the same over there.
Yeah.
So I think you take a long-term view as a buyer. As a seller, you work out what's driving you. I'd probably like to sell now and be a buyer probably come our springtime. So, the last quarter of this calendar year would be probably if I had an ideal choice. Not everyone can do that, but that's what I'd be doing.
John, we're also seeing a lot of our team use case studies to help educate our clients, our sellers. And we've encouraged that. We actually did that, Stephen, as a daily webinar share. We were making sure that we were showing that the great results that were happening, regardless of the current climate that we're in, were distributed throughout the group, because we knew that people look at evidence. People want to have that referral factor. People want to understand what else is happening. It's all well and good to say, well, the market's fine and all the rest of it, but you've got to have that evidence-based information, both for buyers and sellers. So, John, we obviously did that, and that got great results and put us in a position now that we're seeing a lot of more activity or a lot more inquiry come through, especially in our regional markets from both buyers and sellers.
You're very good. Go on, sorry, John.
That's okay. Simon just asked a question. Are Aussie lenders getting nervous? Surprisingly, no. I think there was a little bit of a tightening of the belt a couple of years ago where they were just a little bit more conservative with who they were lending to. obviously post GFC, the low doc loans and the 100% loans, fortunately, all disappeared, and I think they got back to better loan to value ratios. So right now, anyone, to be honest, without sounding rude, anyone that should get a loan can get a loan. The only people that can't are those that were probably risky at any point.
Okay, so where you're exceptional, where we in the UK need to improve, some of us, not all of us, is market wraps, and telling people exactly what's going on in the local area rather than nationally, because locally you can say, I mean, Sean's here, yes, we've had some sales fall through, but we've resold the property for more money. Well, that's a story, and that's a case study. And I suppose if you can get those vendors talking about, well, we thought we were going to lose our buyer and actually we ended up with more money, there's some reassurance and giving some confidence for the market. So, Ian,
that's a great point, Steve. We spoke to our guys almost every day during COVID. We said, right now, people want calm because there's enough hysteria out there, not just in property, but in everything. People want calm. They want confidence. So you need to be confident yourself to be able to exude confidence. So you need to have a great sales and marketing strategy. You need to be expert in your field at things like negotiation, if that's part of your job, if you're a negotiator, working with buyers and so forth. So, people are looking for that. They want a plan. They don't want you just to turn up and say, we'd love to handle your property, we're the best. They actually want to know, what is the plan? So a lot of our guys, they were giving vendors a 30, 60, 90 day or a stage 1, stage 2 plan. So they say, Stephen, here's what we recommend for the next 21 days. Here's the approach that we want to take because we want to get your property into the market. We want to get feedback on the market, so on and so forth. And then, stage 2, if we haven't sold it within the 21 days, here's what we would do next. And, this is a time you need to be a surgeon. You need to have precision. You need to be thoughtful. You need to have empathy as well. This is not a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter sign here market. This is a market where a lot of people that are coming to you are in pain. They're embarrassed. They may have lost their job. They might be under some other financial duress. There's a whole range of things that could be impacting people. They could have even lost a loved one. So, Tommy Panos often talks about the commission press scenario, which is, sort of agents come along and all they're interested in is sign here so I can get my 2 or 3% commission, whatever they might be getting. So I think it's calm, it's confident, it's empathetic, it's strategic. And if you take those 4 feelings, characteristics and approaches to the market, you're going to stand out because not many agents exude those things every single time.
Okay, brilliant. Troy, anything to add?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Stephen, I spoke in January about personal brand and really setting up everyone for momentum. And John mentioned 2 things there, empathy and confidence. If you are now that person in your marketplace, in your village that has to display that, what are the thoughtful ways that you're engaging? What's the messaging that you're promoting out there? Because like John said, we've got to be calm. You need to be calm and you need to make sure that people understand the situation. They're not just grabbing at headlines and they will come back to you. It's almost like a full effect that they'll come back and they'll be asking you questions and better questions as opposed to what price, when can I see it, if you can see it now in those private inspections. So it's really important. We've spoken about it a lot. Sorry, John?
Sorry, Troy, I just saw a question from Jim. Sorry, I thought you'd finished. My apologies. I just got a question from Jim. How much further forward are we with COVID? So, we were very fortunate. I think more fortunate than most parts of the world. As I said, we had 103 deaths, which is not fortunate, but compared with what's happened elsewhere, of course, we ended up being a lot better. Where I think we might be in what they might be calling stage 2 as you come out. So right now, not only are essential services available, obviously real estate, we can now do open for inspections, whereas during the middle of COVID, we could only do one-on-one appointments. And in New Zealand, in fact, they shut the whole country for a few weeks and you couldn't do any appointments. So, we were never stopped by the government from showing property, but we went to one-on-one. When we then went back to open for inspections. Restaurants here, for example, last week could have 10 people. This week they can have 50 people. So that might be sort of similar to what you're feeling in other parts of Europe and the UK. So I think, we were definitely more fortunate than most in the way our country was able to sort of slide through with less impact. But we've got 10% unemployment here. It's not dissimilar to a lot of other parts of the world. But I think it feels like as long as we don't get a second wave, which is the real question, Steve, is which countries will get a second wave hit, and the fear surrounding that, which will stop some people making decisions. So if we don't get that, and hopefully nowhere in the world gets a major second wave before there are treatments and vaccines in place, because once they happen, of course, everyone's breathing much more readily. So, we're pretty fortunate. But, it's funny, one of that very first webinar, and you should, if you can get Matt Steinway to do one of your sessions, Steve, he last year wrote 5.2 million in commission and surfed every day. So two things. He loved surfing and he wrote 5.2 million. Troy and I interviewed him on the second day of our daily webinars early on, and he said, John, Troy, here's what he said: I'm actually moving forward as though this isn't happening. He said, I'm practicing social distancing, hygiene, I'm doing all that stuff right. But he said, I'm not looking at the media, I'm not looking at the 6 o'clock news. He said, I ring my business partner every night before I go to bed about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I say, is there anything I need to know about, the business, the environment? Is there any change of practices that we can or can't do? And he said, no, all good. So he really removed himself from all those distractions and all the hype and all the fear-based communication, number one. Number two is he said, here's the deal. At the moment, I think he had like 30 vendors or 30 listings that he was handling himself. He said, I just went to them and he said, I found out those that actually wanted to sell and keep selling versus those that were too scared and wanted to put it on hold. And he said, I'm not going to try and convince someone that doesn't want to sell, they must sell. He said, so I just found out, and out of the 30, there was like a dozen that were saying, no, we definitely still want to sell. Then he went to the buyers he was working with, and out of the 50 buyers he was working with, 20 said, we still want to buy, we don't need to wait. So he kind of left the other 30, he said, you tell me when you're ready. So, I mean, this is a $5.2 million strategy, by the way. It's not that complex. He found the sellers that still wanted to sell, and he had a conversation. He said, look, Stephen, there's no doubt there's been a little bit of a correction in the market. We think it's somewhere between 3 and 5%, could be a few percent more depending on the property. But there are still buyers. If you're still prepared to move forward, we'll do it with appropriate measures and social distancing. And he just kept matching them together. And, some of our guys are still doing 10 to 12 sales a month. In the middle of one, Phil Nicholas, one of our guys last week, we just found out yesterday, he just finished May, which was a COVID month, with 10 sales, Troy, didn't he? He did 10 sales. Averaging around about $1 million. So that's a good month in anyone's language. That's terrific. And so our best people, to be quite frank, are just acting as though this didn't happen. Whereas the other people, most of the industry, looking at it every day, looking at the morning news, the afternoon paper, the evening 6 o'clock bulletin, they're talking about it around the water cooler. Every conversation is around it. And our best guys, if I can share anything, because I think one of the things you want to ask, Steve, is what have we learned about dealing with it? They're just moving forward, and they're kind of putting the earmuffs on and the blinkers on, and they're just moving forward, matching buyers with sellers. And sure, the price might need a little bit of adjustment here, and the odd buyer needs a little bit of confidence boost, because even the buyers that wanted to buy, they were still a little bit more nervous than usual. But he just said, I've just decided you're the guys that want to sell. You're the guys that want to buy. I just need to match you up. So sometimes we overthink things. I would just say shield yourself from it. It's addictive. It's like watching train wrecks sometimes. Sometimes you feel you got to turn on the news and see how many more people have died or whatever. It's a horrible situation, but it's easy to get addicted to the sort of the sensational bad news. And our recommendation is shield yourself as much as practicable. Tune into your daily Facebook webinar. Don't tune into the morning news. And obviously, we're preaching to the converted here with all your great listeners. And just stay positive, because your mindset now is the differentiator. Because when a buyer comes to you and says, "Oh, Steve, I don't think it's a good time to buy," your response to that, and we don't. Again, we're empathetic. Tell me why, Steve, you don't think it's a good time to buy. And he, well, I just read a thing in the press and said the market could be down 30%. Okay, well, I read that too, to be honest, and here's my take on it. But at the end of the day, Steve, if you're not ready to buy, I'm not here to push you. You need to be comfortable that it's the right time, and of course, more importantly, the right property. So, we kind of teach our guys to take all the emotion out, just deal with the facts, calm, confident, empathetic, ask them some questions. And so many people say, "Oh, wow, So are people still buying? And we say, yeah, we're down about 30% volume. But that means 70% as many people that bought through us last year, pre-COVID, have bought again this year in the middle of COVID. So that gives people confidence knowing that others are moving forward. And as they see our sold signs go up, and they even attended a lot of our auctions over COVID, we actually went from doing real auctions to virtual auctions. So it was quite interesting. People were now tuning in their iPad and their mobile phones and bidding on properties that we're auctioning. So the auctioneer was at the property, pulling the auction into a camera, and the camera was going out to the pre-registered bidders, and they were bidding in that manner with obviously social distancing and total safety. And we had some terrific results at auction via virtual auction. So there is an answer to everything. There's a way to get through everything if you're solution focused as opposed to focused on the drama.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So presumably, for me, actually, it's all about being a matchmaker and a deal maker in this market, and putting two people, and the best agents out there are doing that. And as Ian said, it's just simple but such good advice. Again, thanks very much. Keep on liking it and sharing it. Some people are finding that buyers are trying to get on with low offers and potentially renegotiating on what they've agreed, the price they've agreed on. How would you handle those conversations, please?
Yes, there's no magic formula here, Steve. So the first thing is to make sure your properties are priced in alignment with today's market, which could be 5 or 10% different to a few months ago. Because the buyer's probably right. If you're coming in and the price is £500 and you're on the market at $550 or $6, that's the issue. So assuming you've aligned it, we take a very proactive approach. Again, one of our top guys who's writing this year about $4 million in fees, so he's also extraordinarily high writer. And his approach, which we recommend to everyone, was basically, Stephen, we've priced this at a COVID price. This is actually not what we would have got. We'd have got about another 10% 2 months ago. So if you buy this property, you're actually buying at today's market. If it's not the right time for you to buy, we totally respect that, Steve. But if you're looking for a bargain, that is a property well below price. That's not going to happen here with our client. Our client is not in a position they're forced to sell. They're prepared to sell at current market value, which we believe. Let me take you through the rationale as to why it's worth this. Let me show you what it would have been worth 2 months ago. And then, Steve, it's up to you. So from a negotiation standpoint, the calmest person in the room always owns the negotiation. So the harder you push, the harder you pull, the harder you try and get someone into a deal, the more likely they are to backpedal. So we always talk about care, but not that much. We always talk about making sure that you have facts to back up. Because people, they'll throw in an offer, and everyone, you do it yourself, Steve. Right now, you're wondering how desperate the vendor is and how low they might go. So that's not uncommon. But until you actually get someone to push back and say, that's not going to happen here. Here is why this is at current levels. Here is why this is very fair market value. And Steve, our view is post-COVID, there's going to be a surge of buyer activity, and either you're going to own this or you're going to be competing with more people in another 30 days. So, to be fair, you have to be sure that your price is aligned, because if your price is 10% above current market, that's a difficult path to tread. But that's the way we're doing it, and we're putting deals together. We agree, Steve, matchmaker, putting deals together. Troy, what have I missed? Tell me.
No, John, I just think you're right. If you're the calmest in the room, you are normally going to get into that position of really getting a great outcome on the negotiation. I think everyone on this call, and John and Stephen, you've heard this and seen this firsthand. When agents get an offer, and it's normally a low offer from a buyer, they'll kind of reject it straight away and kind of come back with all the reasons and fire off all these things, that the reason why it's too low. Or they'll say, oh, great, we'll just put it down and I'll take it to the owner of the property and see what I can do for you. It's actually not that at all. It's almost, and John, we were speaking to one of our top performing agents from Brisbane, and he said it's almost like you need to take a step back. Take a deep breath and kind of get a really clear understanding of how they came up with that offer themselves. What properties are they comparing it to right now in the market to determine that offer, as opposed to just throwing any figure out there? You don't want to offend the buyer, of course, but you really step them through how they came up with that process, and then take that with negotiation strategies and skills that we've spoken about, mirroring and all those types of things to the owner so they can understand where it's at. But John, I think you're right. If you're the calmest person in the negotiation, you're always going to come out in front.
Yeah, and Troy, that was Alex Jordan, another guy you should try and get a look at. Troy will send you the webinar we did with him and Matt Steinway, Steve, as a matter of interest, because it'd be great to expose some of your team to them. But yeah, he said, look, here's the problem. A lot of agents receive an offer and sometimes they kind of feel so desperate, so excited to get any offer. They race off it. Oh, great, thanks. I'll submit the £500 and see how we go. Alex said, number one is he's never sold a property to the first offer in his life, because he said everyone's always got more money. No one leads with their highest best offer. So he said if you accept the first offer, or even if the vendor does, you're actually sending the wrong signal that maybe they're paying too much. So he says the first thing to do and most important thing is pause. So you've got a property on the market at £575,000. Someone says, well, I'm going to offer you $510,000. First thing he does is nothing. He says, Steve, £510,000, that's a very low offer. Would you mind telling me how you arrived at that figure? Then he shuts up. So first thing is he doesn't panic. He doesn't get depressed. He doesn't get excited. He doesn't run off. He's thoughtful. Then he says, Steve, that's a very low offer. Would you mind if I ask how you came up with that offer? So he's looking for the buyer to then try and justify. Now, the buyers are going to say, well, I've got to be honest, another agent offered me the home straight behind it last week for £525, and that's a better offer. And he might have some good evidence and good facts, in which case that's a conversation you might have to have with the vendor. He might just say, well, that's all I'm prepared to offer, in which case then we say, so Steve, is it a budgetary issue, or is it do we disagree on value? Because if all you have is $510, I respect that and I understand, and I couldn't recommend that price of vendor. There's Snitzel, the dog's just crept in here. Hello. And we say, so if it's a budgetary issue, we do respect that, and it may not take this home out, but we'd be delighted to find you another home up to $510 if that's your budget. If it's a disagreement on price, we should have a discussion, because I know you love it. Your family's been through it 3 times. It feels like it's the right home for you, and I don't want you to miss it because you've underestimated what it's really worth. So then you're trying to find out. And if they say it's a budgetary issue, then you need to say, so therefore, Steve, if someone else, because I am talking with other people on this property as we speak, if someone else comes in at £515 or £520, I assume you don't want me to contact you around that. Because then it's a big call for them to say, no, don't contact me. So you're then finding out, are they seriously out of money, or are they just trying to convince you that they're out of money? And again, none of these are tricks. They're just, the question is, how do we identify what the buyer's real position is? Because the buyers all go to buyer school and they're taught, never make your best offer first, and always tell the agent that's all you can spend, and always tell the agent you're looking at another property. They're always all of these things. So they're taught all of that in buyer school. So you've got to, as an agent, you're there to defend the price and get the highest possible price, not to sell it. Anyone can sell it for something. The question is, can you get the best outcome? So just some of those things really force the hand of the buyer to make sure they're not foxing you. And then you go forward and go from there.
Lovely. So for me, it's about, we're paid property professionals. It's a skill to be a negotiator. That's what we're paid for. And now more so than ever, that's why, we've got to demonstrate we're skilled negotiators. And every last single penny can make a massive difference for that vendor. And that's what we're here to do. So I've had a few people that say they're actually thinking about opening up an agency in this market. What actions would you be taking to become the leading agent in their area? And what do they do? Are they mad starting now?
Well, look, I would say if you have an aspiration to own an agency, well done, but I probably wouldn't do it right this minute, because I think that we'll get some clarity in the next 6 months, certainly well before 12 months, as to what the medium term. And starting a new business is tough enough without headwinds going against you strongly. So I'm a positive person. If you have an agency out there, we can make the best of it. We can turn the chaos into an opportunity and really capitalize on it. But if you don't have one at this point in time, I would say probably wait. But the same advice whenever you do launch, it's about people. So it's about, what is your offering? What are your points of difference? What is your marketing strategy? because a lot of people say, oh yeah, well, I'll put it on the internet and I'll put a board out the front. That's not a point of difference. That's kind of what every person on the planet does. So the question is, what is your point of difference around that? Do you bring a stylist in? Do you open the home on Sundays? Do you open home? Do you do auctions? Do you utilize some other form that social media? There's a girl in Sydney at the moment. You guys should have a look at her. Her name's Lisa Novak, Novak.
We've come across Lisa.
Lisa's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll send it over with the videos as well for all the listeners.
Thanks, Joy. Yeah, she did one live. She's brilliant, and her approach is stage one, Stephen. Here, don't give me any money now. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a video before I leave. If you sign the paperwork, I'll take a video before I leave. I put it on my Facebook account. I'll then put it when I get back to the office through my database. 90% of my deals are going in 14 days without ever hitting the internet, just going through, they're going through social media and they're going through via database. 90% of her sales. She's posting between 4 and 15 posts a day. It's costing those vendors nothing. And she says, that's stage one. Now, Steve, if we don't get the desired result by stage one, we'll go to stage two. We'll put it on the portals. I'll put a signboard out the front. I'll then start opening it up to the wider market. But my statistics are pretty strong at the moment in terms of doing that, and it'll cost you nothing in the short term. It might cost you, some photographs or a floor plan or something, but it's not a material amount. It's not a $5,000 or a £10,000 investment as some marketing programs are. So that's her point of difference is social media. The videos are raw and real and authentic. She literally walks around. So I've just listed this home this second. It's a stunning home on DY Beach. It's going to go for around 1.1 to 1.2 million. You've got 2 weeks to get in and have a look at it before it goes to the major portals. Give me a call tomorrow. I'll get you through. I've got time available. And that is a great point of difference for her. There's another young guy, Josh Tesselin, that we'll send you as well. He's a gun. Last month, he sold 26 properties. He's a guru. He's been in the industry too.
I saw his rant with Tom on Sunday night, and the energy that he's got and the passion, and you can see how why he's doing so well.
So in the major COVID month, which I think for us was April, was probably where it was at its worst. He sold 26 homes himself, not his office, himself, in that month. So pretty much one a day he sold. And he's just got incredible energy. He uses social media a lot. So Josh Tesselin, Tessolin, I think is the spelling or thereabouts. Look him up, follow him, see what he's doing. You can learn from these people. And he's very much also around social media. So again, when he lists the property, he spends about $1,000 Australian in boosting it and promoting it to the wider audience. Lisa only spends, by the way, $20 to $30 in boosting hers. So she's got a small investment. He's got a much bigger investment. But both of them are using social media very, very effectively. So that may or may not be your thing. I mean, your audience has to work out what works for them, but you have to have a point of difference, and you have to be doing something, Steve, different to the person that just left before.
Definitely. So Paul has asked, would you recommend we post the property videos on our personal or business Facebook page?
Well, look, the answer is an interesting question is, do you have both, and do you have one private and one public? I always find it's a bit confusing because most people will search you, and if they look at both and one of them is you at a party on Saturday night having had a couple of too many beers, that's not a great look, and then people wondering where to look. So I definitely on your business page. If your personal page is private, do whatever you like on that. If your personal page is public, I think you've got to accept that people see it as much as a business page. So I'd be posting it there as well. But the social media stuff is a huge. That's the biggest thing coming through at the moment with us. We're finding the agents that are really growing their business quickly are leveraging social media. And as Lisa said, she says, look, I do these things every day. I'm nervous. I'm no expert at it. She said, I don't have any fancy equipment. I've got a mobile phone. And she said, I stand here and I walk it around and I do it. Funny, Josh Tesselin, when I asked him what was his CRM software, he said, there it is. He said, that's my CRM. He said, I don't have any fancy software. He said, when someone rings me and wants to sell, I put them in here. And Stephen, I put a little emoji next to their name, and he used a money bag emoji for a potential seller. So Stephen Brown rings him. He puts in Stephen Brown. He puts a little money bags emoji next to your name. Every morning he hits search money bags emoji. It shows him all the people that he's talking to. He said, if you're a potential seller with me, Steve, so you haven't listed, but you're intending to list, and we're in that conversation, he said, you will receive at least once a day a bespoke custom text from me updating on the market, telling them I've sold something, I've listed something, what's happening in the market. So again, frequency is big for him. And I think that's fine if a vendor is in the market getting ready to list, or a buyer is in the market getting ready to buy. It's pretty hard to flood them with too much information. It's very easy to flood a past client that you've dealt with. They don't want to receive something every day from you or every month. So, I think it's just have a look at what some of these people are doing.
Brilliant. Look, I'm very conscious of time, John, and we've done 45 minutes and it's absolutely flown by. Have we got a little longer, or do you need to go?
Sure.
Because your time's far more important. So.
Yeah. No, we Troy would love to. Troy's probably got some fancy dinner. I'm just going to be having dinner here, watching Netflix. But I did see a question there. I can't remember who it was from. Someone was asking Troy, your hairstyle, is there some special hair product that makes you look? And I said to him, Steve, last week, I said, that is one of the sharpest, fastest haircuts in 20 years I've seen. Anyway,
It was David. It was David Mintz.
Yeah, just to cap off, every single person that we speak to, John and Stephen, I know we discussed this in the masterclass, we need to see ourselves as a personal brand. And the reasons why people are going to list with us, it's not because of the shingle on the door, it's not because of the brochures, it's not because of our Facebook presence, it's actually what we do with those things. So we spoke, and John, we've trained this with a lot of our team, and we've heard it from different speakers throughout the group. You've got to be able to really sell the benefits of using you. What do you stand for? What's your niche market? Lisa Nova and the team, they do an amazing job at doing digital. Josh Teslin does an amazing job at digital. Video is a very big strength of Lisa's. The second part of that is, how does the business support you in that process? How does the business really get you to a point that helps you achieve more of what you need to do and what you want to do? And then the third part, John, that we've discussed many times is the strategy. We need to refine our strategies and processes, that it's not ad hoc. It's done every single time, and it's done perfectly every single process. So those little things, I know that we spoke.
Yeah, you should be able to say to a vendor, Troy, Troy, there are 47 things I'm going to do. Can I take you through the most important ones when I list your property? And again, I know that not everyone on perhaps your audience is going to be a lister as well, but whatever your role is, you need to have checklists. It needs to be done with military precision or surgical precision, if you will. And you've got to have a point of difference. You can't just turn up and say, oh, I'm a really nice person, you give me a shot. You need to have an approach that resonates with people. So, it's very exciting. But the great thing is, anyone can start in this industry, and within 3 to 6 months, they can have all of those things. You want to be a world-class barrister or a world-class surgeon, you need 10, 20 years of training and education and hundreds of thousands of dollars in personal education around this. In real estate, you can actually find out at very low cost what are the things that most successful people do via channels like yours, and then go and practice them. But as late Kobe Bryant said, you've got to fall in love with the practice. You've got to do deliberate practice. You can't just turn up at the gym between 2 and 4 p.m. just because that's training time. You've got to think about, what am I going to train today? What are my weaknesses? What are the things I need to hone? Who am I playing this Saturday? I was talking, Stephen, to one of our guys a few days ago, and I said he was going out to see a client, a potential seller, a listing. And I said, tell me 3 reasons that he won't list with you. And he looked at me. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, there's probably some reasons he's thinking that he may want to list with you. What are the 3 most likely? So we put on a whiteboard, and I said, great, now tell me 5 reasons he would be absolutely insane not to list with you. What are the 5 most? And we came up with a list of 8 things, and then we prioritized the top 5. So just a little thing. This is a winner-take-all category. The person that wins the listing gets 100% of the commission. The person that finishes a close second gets 0%. And it's a game of inches. You only got to win the listing by 1 or 2 inches or 1 or 2% to get 100%. So I said to him, you need to turn up. I said, you don't just turn up. You're a good guy. I know that. And you've got a good track record. I get that. But you need to think about, who are you going to meet? What is their mindset? Who are you up against? what might they perceive could be a benefit someone else offers, and then you have to turn up fully organised. So it's really a matter of how prepared are you for your next buyer appointment or listing appointment or even lettings. I understand lettings are a huge business in the UK. So whatever it is, most people are amateurs, Steve. They're not professional. They're not turning up fully prepared mentally, physically, with all the right data. So for me, it's about what does it take to get you from X to 10X. 10X is not the same version of you. You need an extreme makeover. So then we say, what are the gaps? What are the things you have to get better at around that? So it's very exciting. I've been in it 38 years or something, long time anyway. And I just feel it's like Groundhog Day. It's like starting, because every single day I get to be exposed to these incredible agents that we work with. Troy and I work with great people like you, Steve, and Luke, and other people from the UK that we've met that have been a wonderful part of our world. Working with Tom Panos. It's very exciting, and the pace at which the industry is moving now, to me, it's not daunting, it's exciting. It's only daunting if you're not on that wave. It's going to crash over you.
Okay, well, there's a couple of questions that have come in, so thank you. Can you give some advice to UK agents about vendor paid advertising? And I've lost the question now.
There's one about fees there, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, and I've got the same question. How do you overcome vendor objections about VPA? And how do you overcome a seller's objections about wanting a cheap fee?
So on the marketing, first of all, you've got to sell yourself on marketing. I'm a great believer in the immense value of marketing. And I believe, Steve, that every dollar you spend through me, you'll get 4 or 5 back in return if we do it right, whether it's styling, marketing, the things that I'm going to recommend you do. So I will set it up front and I'll say, Steve, my role is not to sell your property. I think you might have called me thinking you need someone to sell your property. You can sell it yourself. You've probably spoken to other agents. They can all sell it. My role is to maximize your price, get you the highest possible price. Therefore, Stephen, every recommendation that I give from here on going forward is around how do we maximize price. The way we get the highest price is we attract more buyers, we get them emotionally connected to your property, then we create a competitive scenario, be it auction, be it private treaty, be it multiple bids, whatever it is. That is the formula. The way we get more buyers is through marketing. There's different forms of marketing. There's cheap marketing, there's better marketing, then there's the Rolls Royce. I'll be recommending the Rolls Royce version of marketing for your property, because every dollar we invest on your property in marketing, we will get, if we do it right, we'll get back $4 to $5 in return, or pounds. So you've got to believe that, and I believe it, and you've also then got to have a great marketing strategy, and I know we have a great marketing strategy. If you don't believe it, you've got to go and educate yourself as to the value of marketing. If you don't have a great marketing strategy, great tools, you've got to go and invent them fast, because someone else down the road will have them if they haven't already. So that's the first way. Then I just say, so Stephen, can we do it no marketing at no cost to you? Absolutely, we can do it. Can we get you the best price? No, we can't. The way we're going to get the best price is marketing. So I'm going to invest my time and effort over the next 2 weeks or 2 months, whatever it takes. I'm here fully committed. There's no cost for my services until we sell. The only thing I'm asking you to invest in is the marketing, and we find not much resistance. I mean, there are competitors that do no sale, no charge, and they do free marketing, and we'll spend 50% and you spend 50%. We haven't found there an issue. If you have the best marketing tools and you believe in it and you explain the benefit of them investing in that, and whether it's £1,000 or 10,000, the number is flexible. It really depends on what does the best marketing tools cost. On fees, and Troy, jump in on any of that.
Yeah, John, I was just going to say 2 things for me, which you said perfectly: belief, and 3 to 5 amazing case studies where you've had clients invest in marketing and you've seen that return. You need to be able to tell that narrative and really get the client to understand that it's not just because you want to spend money and expose your personal brand or the agency you work for. It's because it gets the result. So you've got to believe it first and foremost, like John was saying. And then the second thing, you only need 3. You don't need 15, 20. You need 3 amazing case studies of past clients that have gone down the path of investing heavily in marketing and seen those results. That's the only 2 things that I'd add into that, John. I think it was perfectly said.
Yeah. You're right, Troy. Case studies. I mean, social proof. If I've sold a property around the corner for a great outcome, and they adopted a certain marketing program, it's almost pre-sold. So the really good point Troy's made is utilize social proof, utilize other successful events. You don't need 25, you need 3 to 5. And you can, the 3 to 5 don't even have to be identical to that property. They just have to be a relevant scenario. On the fee side, same thing. We're the most expensive in our markets in general, Steve. And we don't apologise for that. I proactively raise it up front, and I say, Steve, you'll find that there are discounters. There will be people that will be much cheaper than me, and most people will be a little bit cheaper than me. We've arrived at this fee level because we believe, as I said to you earlier in the conversation, it's essential to get the highest possible price. The good news, Steve, is you don't pay me a cent till I get a price you're delighted with. So I'm free until you're delighted. So it's a pretty good outcome, really. So, you know, and that is the truth. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to sell a percentage of a successful result. You've got to sell yourself. I don't believe all agents are the same. Therefore, it would be ludicrous to think that all agents' fees should be the same. Just like a Rolls Royce should be the same as a Holden or a cheaper model. So I say that, you know, the best agents should be and are almost always slightly higher. The good news is, I think as a great agent, you can get 5 to 10% more, and you rarely cost much more than 1% more than a competitor. Our competitors are somewhere between 0.5% and 1% less expensive than us in terms of what they quote. And, yeah, look, we've got a guy who's got 83% market share in his territory, and he writes close to $4 million again, a different guy yet again. And every single agent that they're going, because he's up against sort of 20-odd agents that are fighting over the remaining 17% market share. So they're all undercutting him every single time, and he just walks in, he gets the same fee, and he gets marketing up front, and he's calm, and he's confident, and he's empathetic, and he follows the process, the track record. And I think people want the best agent. And again, just like buyers will offer the lowest possible price they can imagine to give it a go, vendors will try and see if they can get the best agent for a lower price. But, you know, you have to be. A dear friend of mine runs Christie, a dear friend of ours, Troy's and mine, runs Christie's in Australia. He sold 4 of the last 5 years. He sold the record price in Australia. The last one he did for $102 million, Australian dollars. He will not vary 2% from the day I've met him, and I've known him for 25 years till today. He has never done a deal less than 2%. So on that particular deal, it was a $2 million selling fee. And I've been in the lounge room and done deals with him as a co-agent, and before he used to work with us a long time ago. And he will not budge. He won't do 1.95. He won't do 1.99. He's a 2% guy, and he explains it, and he says, you know, here's how I go about it. He says, Stephen, every one of my clients for my entire career has paid me 2%. I wouldn't disrespect all of them by discounting at a later stage. I know how to get you the best price for your property. I've sold 4 of the last 5 highest priced homes in the country. It would be a pleasure and an honour for me to represent you. So he's calm, confident, respectful. And people kind of say, yeah, okay. And then they think, all right, well, if you are the best, you'll get me more than that little bit extra. Most agents in the country do it for 0.1%, let alone, sort of 1.5%. So I think that the fees are bigger in your own mind as an agent than they are in a seller's. I think you have to accept that vendor school they're told to try and negotiate the fee. I think if it's a concern, it's not a concern for everyone. I mean, I would say that most of the time when I was selling, I would just put down the paperwork, go through it. My fees are 2.5%, and it wouldn't be a challenge. The people, when I knew that there was going to be a challenge, they'd mentioned it to it, and it seemed to be a big agenda item, I'd raise it up front. I'd say, Stephen, you will find that I'm a little bit more expensive than everyone else. And here's why. And the good news is you don't pay a cent until I get your price you're delighted with. So that's the good news. So if I'm the agent you want, that's great news. If you think there's a better agent than me and they're more expensive than me, I would honestly and respectfully recommend you go with them. It's never the case because they don't start negotiating until they want to choose you. They don't negotiate with the third agent on their list. They negotiate. They might say to them, what will you do it for? But when they're sitting down trying to negotiate, it means they want you. And I think you have to have integrity and strength in protecting your fee going forward. So that'd be my view.
Brilliant. I'm going to I mean, you've been amazing, and so both of you have been so generous with your time. So just going to finish with, one question that's come from this. So would you suggest doing some free marketing packages initially in order to generate the social proof?
I think that can be a strategy. I think the problem with that is most good agents' business comes from repeat and referral. And then the story gets told that, well, here's what they did, here's what they charged me, here's the marketing. So I think you can do it in a limited version, but you do have to be careful because it can go viral. And, I inevitably, if you discount one vendor and they refer 6 of their friends to you, it's a good problem to have, but 6 of the friends want the same deal. So I tend to think that if there might be better value add ways than free marketing. But I think, going forward, if you can get to tipping point, Stephen, here's the thing. Between 0 and 10% market share, you're one of a sea of faces. There's a lot of the village has got another 30 agents like you. Everyone's got, 1 or 2% market share. Once you get from 10 to 20% market share, which means that, a lot of signs in your area have got your name on them, you're starting to build momentum towards tipping point. Once you get to 25 to 33% market share, and as I said, Pete Chauncey, one of our top guys, has got 83% market share.
I know, but if he went on your webinar, he would have got 100%.
Exactly right. Exactly. You missed it. Well done. You picked that up. So at 25 to 33, that means that every 3 to 4 homes have got your board on it and you're compelling. So I think having a strategy to get you from inertia to momentum to tipping point is really good. Just be careful that it doesn't bite you on the backside down the track. Troy?
No, I agree. I think you've got to be mindful it's a long game in real estate. You've got to have that view. And there are clients out there. They will want to be part of your belief structure. You've just got to find them and you've got to start. Most people, John and Stephen, they have fear in starting. They have fear in asking those questions. So again, I go back to my original point about that belief. You've got to believe it. You've got to know it. You've got to trust it. You've got to have those examples readily in front of the client to help them make those decisions.
Okay. And if you're a new agent and you don't have the sales to prove it?
Borrow them from your colleagues. You can say, Steve, our office last week sold a property around the corner for you for a record price. I'd love to share with you the marketing program we used. I'd like to share with you the process that we adopted to maximize that price. I know some of your people are going to go now, Steve, so I'm not going to extend this much longer, but intimate product knowledge regarding the deals, knowing where the buyers came from, where they saw the property advertised, yours and others if possible. So I made it a full-time study to know every transaction, whether it was mine or one of my competitors. If someone bought it, I would introduce myself. If I didn't know the buyer, once they moved in, I'd introduce yourself. Congratulations, you bought a beautiful home. Here's a small home gift, welcome gift. Where were you before? I made it a study to make sure that I knew every single person moving in and out of my community. And that is very compelling when you're a seller, knowing that information. So product knowledge is really key to success.
Fantastic. Look, thanks a lot. I just want to thank everybody. I mean, I appreciate you. It's an early start. You're also, some of you on your way to work. Some of you have got kids jumping around, dogs jumping into your offices. So I'm really, really grateful for you joining John and Troy and myself this morning. If you would like Troy's videos, if you could comment yes in the comment section, I will get those to you as soon as Troy sends them to me. Gentlemen, I just want to say I'm blown away, and actually the amount of people that have consistently stayed in here at this time of the morning is absolutely fantastic. So thank you all. Thank you again. I mean, I can't tell you how excited I was when you replied to my email and you just said, yes, I'd love to, let's do it. And I've been I've been so excited ever since. It's been
a relationship. So we've enjoyed you guys coming and doing so. It's a real pleasure, and anything we can ever do for you and your listeners, it's a pleasure. So we look forward to seeing you next time around.
That's amazing. Just to let everybody know, on Friday, I'm actually putting together a panel of people to talk what's actually happening in the ground. on the ground. So that's going to be 12:30. I've got Kevin Ellis talking about land and new homes. I've got Michelle Brook from MAB talking about what's happening with mortgages. Got Tony from AV Reload talking about what's happening with the conveyancing market. And I've also got Paul Champolino who's going to be talking what's happening in the letting market since we've been back with rents and arrears. So please tune in for that at 12:30. Next Tuesday, I've got the MD of Location, who was voted the #1 estate agent in the UK, going to do a lunchtime learning with me. So thanks very much for joining us. John, Troy, you've been absolutely incredible. And if you're watching on the replay, thanks very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Thank you again. You've been absolutely phenomenal. So enjoy your meal tonight, and everybody have a productive Wednesday.
Bye, team.